Hi everyone, I'm Robert Brown, I'm the BISO at Fornet, so that's Business Information Security Officer. I report directly into the CTO, Stuart Williams. I have been at Fornet now for 15 years, not quite fresh out of school, but not far off. I don't have any great stories around donuts like Jeremy did. In a previous life, I used to be a semi-professional motorcycle racer, so I guess I'm maybe a little bit of a donut, but yeah, so that's kind of me in a nutshell. My job role on a day-to-day basis is essentially to make sure that our cloud platforms and indeed customer cloud platforms are compliant and secure, stating the obvious, right? But it's what I wanted to do is put together just a single slide on how we do it and what kind of methodology we follow when we secure clouds. Now, a cloud is just a group of systems that are placed somewhere. They're not up in the sky. So this methodology, following this, although it might not be perfect, and you're welcome to ask questions and correct me, this indeed works for anything. So home as well, if you wanted to. Maybe you wouldn't quite go this far, but yeah. So this is the pie in a nutshell. So I'm going to start from the top and I'll work my way down. And I'm a little bit wordy, but I just feel free to ask questions. So I was a part of putting together our three big cloud propositions, and that's Agile Cloud, Agile for Enterprise, and the central government antenna data centers. They are very different in the way they're put together. For the obvious reason, the antenna data center is the one that is governed the most by various regulations because of where it is. But then equally, we take that and cookie cutter that over to what we do in the other data centers as well. So it's kind of a great learning, a great play area, if you like, to bring the data over to the other sites that we've got. But what we do is we start from the top, so we understand that the data security is the key piece. And Jeremy talked about this before, and I do hate to use the phrase crown jewels, but I will. And that's essentially understanding what data you've got and where it is. And we can help with that, right? So we can go in and certainly see what data you've got and look at what you don't necessarily need, but it's about classifying that data correctly as well. Those in government will understand about data classification and then the differing levels of compliance you need to follow to essentially keep it secure. But we certainly help with that. So that's the center of everything. If you've got no data, if the data is useless, if it's old, it's old and it wouldn't cause harm to disappear, then ultimately get rid of it, right? So don't necessarily keep it for as long as you need to. So right at the top there, we use data loss prevention, all the AES, and I won't bore you with the technicalities around that, but AES, TLS, all of that type of stuff. It's kind of a built-in standard for everything that we do. There's no reason in this day and age to talk clear text to people. There's no reason to access resources without some form of authentication with all the tools that we've got available to us, which I'll touch upon. The application security is intertwined with network security. So if you imagine there's data in the corner, for it to get somewhere there needs to be a reason, the application, and for it to get there, it needs a road, the network. So it goes without saying that they need to be secure by design. Start them from a secure build and then build upon that. And Craig's going to touch upon this I think he should have touched upon this, sorry, the last ones. In terms of how we automate the process of build and how we can quickly, I'm not sure if he went through the figures, but we can spin out switches, for customers in minutes. It's not hours in terms of, as long as we know the spec and things that are needed. And then the application security is any application that's going to fetch the data, you need to make sure that that's built secure by design, and it's a constant life cycle. Everyone knows that it all should be in an application. You should always be updating it. So that's a life cycle. So you need to make sure that it goes through a process of due diligence to make sure that it's from the point when maybe the third party or your development team release it to production, it's going through that level of checking. So that's static and dynamic code reviews, and ensuring that everything that goes in there, it's all pre-checked before it goes into production. Just back to network security, so it's about who gets onto that network and how. Very basic form of sort of access into the network is your VPN. I say very basic, although it's not, but sort of the next phase of that is ZTNA. So that's your zero trust network architecture. So that's essentially saying we don't trust anyone or anything ever. So there's always a compliance check on the machine. So an example of without it, you might be able to go to your Office 365 on a personal mobile. That might be okay, right, for your customers or your staff. But in this case, with ZTNA, you can leverage certain devices, certain versions of the applications that are on there, and where they're accessing from. So that's a key piece as well to understand how you're accessing the resource you are. But also not at the expense of complexity for the user. You don't want the end user to have to log in and create credentials and update the systems and things like that. It should all be done as part of ZTNA, as part of the compliance, is keeping everything up to date. So we leverage all of this, and obviously the next gen firewalls, they are a given. So I put those on there because it's making sure. The difference between a next gen and a non is that active monitoring of making sure that they can do web application checks, they can tear down TLS packets to look at the clear text in there and understand what it is going to and from, make sure it's not malicious, right? And then the next piece is, I think Kev was going to touch upon this as well, so it doesn't quite fall in defense in depth, but it's not far off. But the identity and access management is kind of understanding how you access the resources and what systems you use for the authentication of those resources. And what I mean by that is we get a lot of current customers and prospective clients. They'll come to us and say, well, we've got all of these systems, but how do we manage the access of those systems throughout, I don't know, say there's 30 systems and there's 27 different authentication servers that we have to maintain. We have to create Robert Brown a log into X number of servers for him to access and do his day job. That's where the identity and access management is key, is understanding that there should be a central source of all of this. And I mean, it goes without saying that MFA, multi-factor authentication, is like the key piece to that. You at the very least, you should be doing that. If you're not, it's kind of a matter of time that things are going to go down south fast. But also, as a key to that, back just to the business continuity and disaster recovery, it's not lost on us that CrowdStrike caused chaos a few months ago now. Identity and access management became a problem for quite a few people there. So it's having that break glass. Is there a second way to get into the systems in the event of an issue that's outside of your control? But this certainly doesn't need to be a Microsoft identity service. There's loads. Yeah, you can even build your own. And then this is where I come in. More so now in my new job role is the compliance and governance piece. So I essentially go through all of our cloud offers and also all of the customer designs that we put together and make sure that they do follow the right compliance and governance from cradle to grave. So whether that's from a contract perspective, if the customer requires certain standards, so maybe that's an ISO standard, then we obviously make sure that we build that with that in mind. It goes without saying that we follow ISO, GDPR, Cyber Essentials Plus, and then we throw some NIST. I don't want to confuse that with NIST 2. So NIST is a kind of US centric, but it's used a lot in the UK just because it's great. We don't get tested on it, although it's kind of a byproduct of doing ISO standards and things. You almost are tested on it. And then the regular audits piece is third party, so everybody who installs a system is responsible for that system, and it's a third party check to hold everybody accountable for what they're doing on the network. Doesn't necessarily mean from a vulnerability management point of view. It could be configuration as well. So ensuring that the configuration is right based on a certain benchmark. So we do benchmark everything that we put out there. So there's certain benchmark standards, CIS benchmarks and things that we will follow and make sure that at the very least it passes all of these tests bar XXX, and we'll decide that as we start to deploy it. So the next piece is the monitoring incident response. This is key, and Jeremy talked about this earlier today about you need to know that somebody's in your network. You need to know who's in your network at any one time. And we complemented our services through acquisition. I guess it was a few years ago now, and we as a result of that, we do a managed SOC service, which is 24/7, and it's a very talented group of people who essentially will monitor your network or devices, whatever it is. That, we can cookie cut the flavor in terms of how that's managed, but they'll monitor that night and day, and they'll come to you with only the necessary that you need to know in terms of attacks. So you might not want to know that somebody's been trying to get onto your VPN overnight. You might do, but generally speaking, if it's on the internet, that will get that all the time. As long as the firewall's doing the right thing and blocking it, then we'll receive that. And if we get too many, then of course we could raise an incident. But they leverage AI and automation a lot in the SOC. So AI is, I'm in complete agreement with what Jeremy said. It feels very much like a buzzword. Everybody's heading in that direction now, and I don't yet feel it's the right fit for security, for full automation. So AI and automation, although they're two separate things, there's a lot of talk about, okay, well, we want to receive this, let's just get AI to recommend what needs to be done, get it done. I don't agree with that, and I'm not sure the many that are, or would, sorry, just because it doesn't have the context behind it, so it doesn't understand the customer, it doesn't understand what they do. There might be a reason. So, thinking out loud, let's say there's a vulnerability scanner on the network. If you left that to AI, every time that started, it would take it off the network. So it's about that human interaction, and that's where our SOC really excel, because we automate fixes to certain vulnerabilities or certain security alerts, but that's human-led, although complemented by AI. So they'll suggest it will suggest how to fix it, and essentially we'll just say yes or no, and then implement it. But it's also very good for the AI is good for the supplementary data out of when you receive an alert, it kind of can go and get all of the data from everywhere and then give you a nice handy report. So that's where it's great, and it saves a lot of time. And we're building that really well into SIEM, and then to complement that, we're using SOAR. So that's an orchestration platform essentially, so that we can. It's kind of whereas SIEM collects the data, collates it, and puts it into one handy report and alerts your staff. The SOAR goes and does something about that, and we implement that now to all of the SOC customers. And then the final two, so we've got perimeter security, which speaks for itself. There won't be much to talk about in this one. It's kind of the extra layer outside of what you've got physically. What I mean by that is, so on all of our cloud solutions, we don't just it doesn't just stop at the firewall or in the router. On our DC, we've got the extra layer above, so that's your BT DDoS protection, things like that. So
everyone,
other additional protection measures that are outside, just utilise them, and we can help with that. And then finally is the business continuity and disaster recovery. Running out of time here, so I'll try and speed up. But business continuity, speak for yourself. How well do you test your processes, and could you recover from a ransomware attack? This is key. So if you lost all of this, it's kind of how quickly you recover, but also making sure you test it. So we regularly do this, and it is a boring tabletop exercise, but it actually works really well, because out of the back of it, we always have an action. There's always, we installed that server last week. Did we do anything with it? And that's really important. And one of the key, if you're going to take anything away outside of what I've discussed, is I'm not sure if you heard of the Maersk and the NotPetya attack that happened a few years ago. Essentially, it was a supply chain attack. They had ransomware put onto one of their servers, and it took down the whole of the company, including all of the ships, for a period of about six or so days. They didn't have any backups. They were all encrypted. They didn't have any offline backups. So they were literally dead in the water, so to speak. And the recovery of that one, it's a very long story, I'm really condensing it here. The recovery of that was a machine that was in Papua New Guinea that was offline for 1 hour during the it had a power outage, a pure chance power outage, and they flew out and
guys.
recovered them off one backup. But
that
just
okay,
goes
Rob?
to show how important that is.
We
They
do have a
lost
hard stop at
350
quarter
million.
past, so this is not the end,
Sorry,
actually.
guys, I've
Sorry,
run
it's the
over
end
there.
of those two
but,
sessions. We're going to do a quick
if
summary.
you've got any questions, you can book
This
a
will be the
meeting
last
with me, although I
7
know
or 8 minutes.
appreciate
That's
I've
okay,
bored you
guys.
with words for the last 15 minutes. So
So
thank you for listening.
if Robbie could let the red team go.